So what is WSQ Discovery? We're very excited to announce this is a new global in-depth measure of personality that really takes personality assessment to a deeper level. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in detail, but most assessment tools, personality assessments, are really looking at that trait level, and we're certainly still doing that. But then we're taking it to a deeper level, looking at self-concept and psychological values, and I'll explain more about that in a moment. Not only does WSQ Discovery measure someone's personality kind of on a typical day, but we're also giving you a picture of what someone looks like when they're able to be at their best versus when they're under a fair amount of distress, which adds a significant amount of value. Just an understanding how what impact stress might have on someone. And then, of course, what we'll be focusing a lot on today is that this new assessment tool offers multiple reports tailored for specific purposes. So I mentioned that one of the unique aspects of Discovery is that we are measuring personality on a variety of different levels. So sort of the most widely accepted way of measuring personality is from the big 5 personality traits: openness, conscientiousness, agreeableness, extroversion, and emotionality, and then the facets that goes into those. So we're certainly still have that big 5 focus that we always have. What we've introduced with Discovery are deeper levels of understanding someone's personality. And so we introduced the self-concept skills. Self-concept skills are all about kind of how someone thinks about themselves. So we're looking at self-confidence, self-acceptance, self-presentation, self-reflection, adding a layer of kind of awareness and, again, self-concept, which certainly informs how we are going to be expressing a lot of our personality traits. Then underneath that, we have what we call the psychological values scales. Another way to think about psychological values are really psychological needs. One thing we know is that as humans, we all have sort of needs or psychological needs that we need to sort of feel safe, secure, comfortable, knowing that we're able to kind of be who we are and be at our best. These can be connection, acknowledgement, information, certainty. And so WSQ Discovery incorporates that to really give us another level of depth in understanding, what is this person really going to need from their environment in order to feel secure and for them to be able to be at their best. There's a lot of insight into, what may or may not be making people a bit defensive, also levels of motivation, what does this person need from their manager in order to be successful, just a lot more in-depth information about an individual, both for themselves and for those that they're working with. What you see here are the 40 scales that the WSQ Discovery is actually measuring. I'm not going to go through all of these right now, but you can see on the top, those are those big 5 traits. Those are a lot of the scales that those of you who have been using WSQ 10 and 15 are pretty familiar with. A lot of overlap there. And then the bottom row represents kind of that deeper level of understanding and in-depth insight. So we have the self-concept scales, the psychological values, and then we have sort of what we call the social or relating scales: comfort with authority, emotional intelligence, irritation and contemplation. That has a lot to do with kind of social psychology and how we interact with others. And then the bottom right there, the conflict energies. This is really a very unique component that we're helping people understand sort of how they approach conflict. And I'll talk about, when I get into that particular report, kind of the various ways that can add value. Obviously, there's conflict at work and really in any setting, so having some insight into how people approach conflicts can also be very insightful. So WSQ Discovery provides reports that add value in a variety of sort of situations, certainly selection, but also individual development and team development. We have this new stress change piece, so a lot of stress management applications. Of course, I was just talking about conflict, and then certainly overall leadership development. And within each of these areas, of course, there's a plethora of different applications and different ways that the instrument and the reports that come from it can be leveraged. To that end, something that's very new about Discovery, different from WSQ 10 and 15, is that we have a variety of reports that are available from one administration. So when someone completes WSQ Discovery, you actually have access to 7 different reports. The reports break down into 2 series. So we have the professional series on the left here and the certified series on the right. And I'm actually going to show you what each of these looks like. Of course, we'll have intense trainings and resources on each of the reports, but we'll just provide a high-level overview today. The professional series reports are available to anyone who is a CareProfiler member and goes through our basic training, and we prepare you to be able to use those reports, just like the higher report and the day 1 report from the 10 and 15. The professional series reports kind of fall into that sort of category. So we have the job fit report, the day 1 conversation guide, and then the strengths and derailers report. And like I said, I'll go into each of these in more detail. But the main piece here to take away is for the professional series reports, those are available and accessible for any CareProfiler member who has gone through sort of the basic training. You'll notice then the list on the right side of the page, the certified series. So the certified series reports, at this point, there's 4 of them: the facilitator report, the personal effectiveness report, the match report, and the conflict energies reports. These are way more in-depth. These reports are really designed to be interpreted, if you will, by a certified facilitator or certified coach. And so we do have a certification process that when folks go through, and that anyone can really go through it. It's a 3-day seminar that really prepares you to leverage these reports. And our certification, it goes beyond just learning how to use a tool, but we really also help you grow in your skills in coaching and facilitating growth and development. So it's a personal development along with really learning how to leverage a really robust tool. If you aren't certified, you can still access those reports, although a CareProfiler consultant would need to interpret it with you and for you. So that it's still possible to leverage those reports without becoming certified right away. You just need to have some assistance and guidance from the CareProfiler consultant on those pieces. So let's kind of break down each of these reports a little bit more detail. I'm going to start by kind of talking what are kind of the core value adds of each report and what would be situations in which you would use them. Starting with the professional series reports. So again, these reports are available to any CareProfiler member who goes through a very simple training, so you're comfortable using them. The job fit report. So again, those of you who are existing CareProfiler members, you're going to be familiar with the WSQ 10 and 15 higher report. This kind of is analogous to that, so it kind of sits in that bucket, if you will. This is the report you're going to use for informing your selection and promotion decisions. It can also be used, though, in sort of a coaching manner. If someone's maybe struggling in their job, this report is going to be helpful to pinpoint what might be some of the areas in which that is driving some of they're struggling, to give a little bit more insight into maybe where some of the hang-ups might be going on. And we'll take a look in more in-depth at what that report actually looks like here in a little bit. The next professional series report then is called the Day 1 Conversation Guide. So again, those existing members who have some familiarity with the 10 and 15 Day 1 report or the manager's report, this is kind of in that same vein, although this takes everything to another level. This is a report that you're going to use when you're bringing someone new to the team. And it really helps the manager understand really how they can set this person up for success. So it gives a lot of insight and tips and recommendation for how to help this person be successful. And it's really designed as a conversation guide, just as the report title refers to, in that it really lays out what are the things that the manager should be communicating with this new employee, this new team member over the course of the first several days, and really helps guide building that effective working relationship, which, as we know, is so incredibly important, as about 83% of people decide whether they're going to start looking for a new job or not within the first 5 days. And so the Day One Conversation Guide helps kind of tip the scales in the right direction, really showing that this manager is invested in the growth and success of each of their team members. The final professional series report, again, available to anyone who is a current CareProfiler member and goes through the basic training. This is more of a development-focused report. It's a self-guided report, really for kind of team members and for you to kind of show your investment in their growth and development. And it's a report that they can work through on their own, really helps them understand their strengths. There's sort of if you think of, a lot of folks are familiar with strengths finders, similar concepts to that. So we're really based on their WSQ Discovery, kind of highlighting what their personality would reflect in terms of their key strengths and what they're really bringing to their role. So kind of giving them some insight into how to leverage those strengths. And then also, what might be some of their derailers? How might be some of the ways that they're getting in their own way, so that they can really kind of get on top of those things and really bring their best self to work. So those are the 3 professional series reports. Again, I'm going to show you what those look like here actually in a little bit. I want to quickly run through, though, the certified reports, which again you can use after completing the certification seminar, or if you have consultation from a CareProfiler consultant. So the personal effectiveness report, this is a development-focused report, really takes professional development to a deeper level, providing sort of insights and frameworks for both team development and group effectiveness, as well as individual work. So the personal effectiveness report can be used for a lot of sort of team development activities, increasing self-awareness of self, and then as well as your team members, and kind of helping people understand their impact and how they can be most effective individually and from a team perspective. The facilitator report is really, of course, for a certified coach or facilitator to really take their work with their clients and team members to a deeper level in their professional development effort. It gives sort of that broad, global, in-depth picture of a client's personality, certainly highlighting their strengths, giving insight into how they might be getting in their own way from time to time. And really helping people forge that professional identity, again, so that they can really find their own significance and purpose and where they need to be at work. The next certified report is called the match report. This is one of my favorites. It's actually a simple report where any 2 people, so certainly a leader and a direct report, or 2 peers, certainly even couples, really any 2 people that have both taken Discovery, what the match report does is it combines their 2 profiles and kind of sees what they look like together. So you get a sense of kind of where they're very similar, where they're very different, where they're very different, how they might be complementing each other, how they might be getting in each other's way. And it's a really simple yet powerful tool that can really get to the core of what might be some of the relational issues, certainly in the context of work, but it can also be used in a proactive way. If 2 people are going to be working together, how can we both get on the same page and set each other for success right away? Finally, then, the last certified report at this point is called the Conflict Energies Report. This is really focused on those approaches to conflict, and this this is primarily used in sort of a team development efforts. This report is often used, kind of have a workshop that goes with it in terms of kind of helping everyone understand their approach to conflict, how that kind of has worked and hasn't, get a sense of the different ways of approaching conflict, and just kind of increasing that awareness of the individuals and of the groups, so that we can probably be more effective in working through conflict. Okay, so that's a quick kind of rundown of some of the ways that each of these reports are going to be helpful and add value. What I'm going to do now is actually just go to our website, CareProfiler.com, and so you can do this as well. It's up now and available. And I want to show you how you can actually look at these new WSQ Discovery reports to kind of start familiarizing yourself with them a little bit more. So if you go to CareProfiler.com, you'll notice on the top, the second piece in is WSQ Discovery. So I'm just going to click on that, and then the WSQ Discovery section pops up. You can learn all kinds of things about the research and theory behind the instrument. There's a lot there. But on the top of the main page here, you'll see the professional series and the certified series. Those are the two report series that we were just talking through. So if I click on professional series, I'll see here those three reports that I was talking about that are in the professional series. Remember, professional series available to any CareProfiler member that just goes through the basic training, which would be pretty much every user. And so we have the job fit report. So again, if you're kind of thinking about how this compares to the WSQ 10 and 15, this would be in the same vein as the hire report. Job fit report really kind of helping inform selection and screening decisions, but can also be used for sort of job coaching and helping someone figure out why they may or may not be struggling in a job. So I have a sample here. A lot of some similar concepts as the hire report, although we certainly take this to a much deeper level. One of the things that the job fit report now has access to that really makes it a lot more robust. So the U.S. government's, the federal government's Department of Labor, they've basically done a job analysis on any position in the country that you can imagine, and have laid out, what really matters for each job, right? So what are the skills that matter? What are the education that matters? And what are the characteristics, work styles, and personality traits that matter? What the job fit report actually does is it just automatically hooks into that library. It's called ONET. It's a free resource, and that's loaded onto our system, that complete library. And so basically, any job in the country can now be accessed to compare against how someone's work styles and personality might fit with what the Department of Labor says is necessary for success in that given role. And so what you see here in the new job fit report, there's 4 key success indicators: personality fit, onboarding index, manager alignment, and stress impact. And so, if you were using this as a quick screening instrument, if you have 4 green lines, that's a positive thing. The less green bars you have, the more concerns that there are probably going to be. So personality fit, just like it sounds, how well does this person's personality characteristics fit with what the Department of Labor says is necessary for success in the role? Onboarding index, similar to the day one index from the 10 and 15 hire report, although this gives a little bit more in-depth information. Basically, what's it going to be like for this person to start their role and get up to speed, and how much investment is their manager going to need to put into them? Manager alignment index. So this is a new feature. So if the potential manager of this person has completed WSQ Discovery, you could actually select the manager's name, and then what this does is it compares how this person and their potential manager might align, which certainly has a lot to do with success and performance and all those pieces. So, of course, we know that the employee-manager relationship is very important. So that gives yet another layer of insight. And then the final key success indicator here, the stress impact index. Remember, with WSQ Discovery, we're measuring how and the degree to which someone changes under stress. So certainly for high stress roles, this index becomes very important. And basically, the quick way to read this, the lower this score, the more impacted by stress that someone likely is. And then, of course, the degree to which they're aware of that or not is probably going to play a pretty big deal into their performance. So those are the four key areas. Then the rest of the report breaks down each of those areas into more detail. So personality fit with index, this is showing me all of the characteristics, again, based on the federal government's job analysis for this job that I've selected, and how well that person kind of meets the needs of the role. And you can see, similar to the higher report, they're inside the target range or they're outside. The more that they're inside, the better their fit. One thing, too, that's different about this report than the 10 and 15 high report is that the traits are always going to be listed in order of importance for the role. And so it's not just a standard set. It's the order is going to change depending upon that job analysis from the federal government. And then it breaks it down into critical traits and important traits. So you actually get two subscales. So the traits that are super important for the role, kind of how well they fit with those, and the traits that are still important but maybe less critical, how well does the individual fit with those. So again, a little bit more in-depth insight than maybe you're used to with the 10 and 15. The next page just gives a description of kind of what the behavior likely looks like for this person on all of those key characteristics. And then we get into the onboarding index, and that kind of breaks it down into, again, some of those similar ideas, but with more in-depth information, building new relationships. So clearly that's going to be the issue for this particular person. Learning the job, they're probably going to be okay there. Receptivity to feedback is a new scale in the onboarding piece. Certainly being able to receive feedback in an open and non-defensive manner is an important part of starting a job, and it gives a lot of insight into how well someone's going to do. And then, of course, adapting to change. So again, giving a sense of that. And then in the day one conversation guide, which I'll show you next, all of these areas would go into much more in-depth information. The next section then was that alignment with their manager. So we're kind of, again, if their manager or potential manager has completed WSQ Discovery, you can select that manager's name, and we can kind of see how these two align with each other and or not, or the degree to which they do. So we're looking at how similar they are, how well information is likely to be exchanged between these two people based on their styles, how well they're likely to get things done based on their two styles, and how well they're likely able to kind of work through issues that may come up in their working relationship. So again, a lot of nice insight into what that might look like over time. The final index then was that stress impact. So this gives us a sense of the degree to which this person's personality characteristics are impacted by stress, particularly distress as it's coming. And you can see there's three kind of subscales here, kind of the overall impact of stress. Then it actually looks at the traits that are most relevant for this particular job. How much does the person change in those areas? And they get an overall score for the critical traits and the important traits. And then the next page shows you actually how someone changes and or doesn't in terms of when they're at their best and under stress on those particular critical and important traits. So certainly a new layer of in-depth information that just wasn't available with the WSQ 10 and 15. Two more pieces on the job fit report then. Of course, we have the interview guide. So one difference in the 10 and 15, the interview guide was separate from the hire report. Here, the interview guide is just part of the job fit report. And what it does is it only gives you questions for scales or characteristics that are outside of the target range. So basically, if a particular scale isn't in alignment for someone with what the federal government says is necessary for success, it's going to give you some follow-up questions that you can incorporate into your interview. This person has quite a few because they have a lot of red areas. And then finally, we have in the job fit report what we call the selection checklist. This is just kind of a nice, tidy way to kind of make sure that you're thoroughly looking at candidates and making a really informed decision. So it's kind of a quick summary, one page that takes you through all of those pieces that we just went through. And so, for example, the first one says here, there are 7 critical or important traits that are outside of the target range. And then it simply asks you, were John's responses to follow-up questions regarding awareness and behavior change sufficient to satisfy all concerns of these out of range? So it kind of helps you check yourself and, yeah, did I really look at that? And was I kind of satisfied with the degree to which we looked at that and that person responded. And so it kind of walks you through the key things to be thinking about as you're hiring this person in particular based on, kind of what we've learned about them through WSQ Discovery. A really nice way to both help yourself as well as people across your organization to be a little bit more intentional in their selection decisions. So that is a quick overview of the job fit report. Again, those for our existing members will have a lot more in-depth training and videos and resources available. So don't worry, this isn't your only chance to see that, but just wanted to give you a sense of what that looked like. The other professional series report that's available right now is the Day 1 Conversation Guide. Again, those of you familiar with the WSQ 10 and 15, this is sort of in the vein of the manager report. So the Day 1 Conversation Guide, again, kind of gives the manager some insight as well as some practical frameworks for, one, really building that initial working relationship, which is so important, and then setting this person up for success. So you'll notice in the table of contents here, it kind of goes through all of the different sections that are in this Day 1 Conversation Guide. A lot of information, a lot of stuff to look at. If someone is kind of looking for more of an expedited, just show me the things that I really need to focus on, maybe the things that can't be ignored, you notice that there's this little Day 1 symbol. And what you could do is look throughout the report and find that Day 1 symbol, and that's basically saying, hey, this is really something that you want to make sure that you pay attention to, right? So we know for this person that building new relationships, that's requiring a lot of energy and investment from me as the manager. I can't ignore that. So I'm gonna go to that section right now, which is this one. Gives me a little bit more insight into what some of the things that are driving some of the challenges around that. And then it's going to give me some questions that can kind of help drive that conversation around this person in terms of helping them build those new relationships as they're coming on board. And so the Day 1 Conversation Guide is laid out in that fashion, and all of the questions that come up to drive those conversations are really specific to the individual. So they're not just kind of standard boilerplate questions. They change depending upon what WSQ Discovery identifies as what this person may need in order to be successful. So a lot of information, a lot of practical solutions, as well as a nice framework for having that conversation on the front end. So the professional series, the sample for the strengths and derailers isn't quite out yet, so that'll be coming here in a few weeks. But sample report for job fit, sample report for Day 1, encourage you to kind of take a look at those on the website. The certified series reports, So remember, certified series, you'll notice the distinction is they have green headers, whereas the professional series have blue. Professional series, any CareProfiler member who's gotten the basic training, watched the videos, whatever way you want to do that, can use those. Certified series either need to attend our 3-day certification seminar to become a certified facilitator, or receive consultation from a CareProfiler consultant with a specific instance of a report. So you see there's 4 certified reports. The personal effectiveness report, we'll kind of take a look at this quick. It's a lot of information here. The personal effectiveness report, again, really for individual development and team development. So it's going to kind of break down personality in a variety of ways. The first way is really from a type perspective. So if you're familiar with certainly the Myers-Briggs, which really is kind of the leader in looking at personality from a type perspective, this is kind of that same concept. So we call this the Cyplex, and this kind of gives a visual representation of someone's personality type. And so if you think of sort of a team perspective, you know, everyone is going to have a different Cyplex, and what does that mean for me, and how can I make an adjustment to help serve the team or the project. And so this report kind of lays out personality in maybe a little bit more accessible manner. This is really, again, to help someone understand themselves as well as their team members. The other pieces that the personal effectiveness report gets at are some of those strengths pieces. So we give them a picture of their top 5 personality strengths, and give a picture of how their type might shift under stress versus when they're at their best, and all the ways that we may change. Lots of applications for this, again, in both individual and team development. And then we also talk about, again, based on sort of some of the personality and those deeper layers of personality, what might be some potential growth opportunities for this person. And then we get into some of the derailer pieces. So again, this is a certified report. Obviously, there's a lot of information in here. And in that certification seminar, we really teach you and prepare you for how to leverage that report. The facilitator report kind of, again, for a certified person to learn a lot of in-depth information. Of course, I'm not going to go through all of it right now, but you get a really full, comprehensive picture of all the facets of this person, all the 40 facets, how they shift and change under stress, how they're different compared to express versus underline. And the nice thing about the facilitator report is that it really kind of helps the facilitator in their work with an individual, again, whether it's a client or an internal team member, to really help them in their professional growth and development. So 2 more certified reports, and then we'll kind of end here on some final pieces of information. So the match report, remember, this is when we basically take 2 people who have completed WSQ Discovery, and the system puts their profiles together and gives you a picture of kind of how they align. So the first page, again, looks at just in general, how similar are they? What's the likelihood of effective information exchange, likelihood of effective task completion, and likelihood of working through issues together. So that's kind of that high-level summary. Then the rest of the report simply takes their 2 profiles and lays them on top of each other. And what you notice really quickly is where the similarities and differences kind of just jump right off the page. So for these 2 people, right, the top person, the blue one, very open in terms of open to new information, new ideas, taking in experiences, where the green person here, on the opposite side, so way more conventional, you know, probably more concrete in their thinking. And so that's probably one way that those extreme differences might create some issues from time to time, right? But we can now visually see that and maybe put some ideas together for how we can really come together and actually complement each other. And so what this report does is really show you this these two people's profiles together, and you can very quickly see what they could be leveraging together and what they could maybe be making some adjustments or how they could be in each other's way. Match report, super powerful and valuable tool. Finally, the conflict energies supplemental report. This is very specific to those conflict approaches. And so it tells us for this individual kind of their default approach to conflict, their last or their kind of their lowest way that they would approach conflict, and then it maps on this chart. Real quickly, basically the idea here is that as humans, when we're in a conflict, it's very specific to moments of conflict. There's kind of two types of energy that we spend asserting our own agenda, and energy that we spend attending to other people's agenda. And kind of the degree to which we're focusing on those two pieces gives a lot of insight into what kind of energy we're bringing into a conflict. As you might imagine, there isn't one right way, but rather it depends on the kinds of conflict you're in. So what the conflict energies does is it gives insight to help people be more aware of kind of their default approach, but then to actually take a step back, look at the actual situation and see what's actually going to be most helpful here. And when you do that kind of in the context of a team, it's actually a pretty powerful report and a powerful team development opportunity. So those are the four certified, facilitated reports. Again, to access those, two options there. You can become certified through our 3-day certification seminar, or access a CP consultant to help you understand one of those at a given time. All right, I'm going to go back to my slides here just real quickly. So we just went through all of those reports. I know a lot of information. And so what I want to do to kind of end our time here today is, for those of you on who are current members who have been using the WSQ 10 and 15, I want to assuage some of what might be coming up for you right now. So first off, nothing's going away. You're still going to have access to the WSQ 10 and 15, so no changes have to happen for you in terms of what you're used to looking at. Although we will be phasing out the WSQ 10 and 15. Primarily, you can hopefully see already the WSQ Discovery reports are just so much more valuable. They have so much more depth of information, precision of information, that we really want to make sure we're working toward transitioning everyone to using those. So March 1st, 2020 will sort of be the drop dead date, if you will, for WSQ 10 and 15. So nothing's going away in the immediate, but we will be working to phase those out March 1st, 2020. Certainly, we will have training webinars, video tutorials, and resources will be available on all of the WSQ Discovery reports, dashboard elements. So no worries, all this stuff is coming here in the next few weeks, and we will give you everything you need in order to really be able to leverage WSQ Discovery. One kind of neat thing is actually from the questionnaire side, everyone has been completing WSQ Discovery since October of 2018. And so starting July 15th, all these reports that we just went through, these new WSQ Discovery reports, you can actually access those on anyone who has completed WSQ since October of 2018. So it'll actually work retroactively. People who are in your system prior to October 2018, if you wanted to access WSQ Discovery reports on them, they would need to complete the newer questionnaire, and we can kind of talk about what that could look like. Some really important things. Starting July 15th, when WSQ Discovery is on and available and everything's running, there's nothing that has to change for you, right? So no process changes. It's the same link. You don't have to do anything. So nothing changes. It's the same front-end experience for people who are accessing your WSQ link. No changes. Also, good news, the questionnaire is the same length. So even though we're measuring a lot more in-depth information, 40 scales as opposed to 10 and 15, we've actually found a way to keep it at the same length. So it's not longer. Certainly we want to make sure it's a pleasant experience to everyone, so you can rest assured in that way. With WSQ Discovery, because there's so many reports that are available, many of them are actually going to be available on a token system, right? So, you kind of purchase a block of tokens, and then you use 3 or 4 tokens to download different reports. For those of you who have been existing CareProfiler members, you will be grandfathered into your unlimited packages that you already have for the job fit and day 1 conversation guide. So nothing will change for you on that front. However, if you want to, for whatever reason, move or downgrade to the token system, you certainly would have that opportunity as well. So again, no major changes, same link, nothing you have to worry about doing differently at all. Starting July 15th, WSQ Discovery reports will be available. We'll have training resources coming here throughout the next couple weeks that dive deeper into the WSQ Discovery reports. And your 10 and 15 reports will still remain available until March 1st of 2020. So that's the information wanted to share with you today. Really appreciate your time and engagement. We're very excited to launch and share WSQ Discovery with you. Should you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to us and make sure that you're checking your email regularly over the next few weeks to get more resources for really how to get the most out of WSQ Discovery. Thanks for joining and have a great day.